afternoon, so I thought that I would tell you a bit about who I am before that and just while we're getting ready. So I work as an organisation consultant doing executive coaching and facilitation like this. So this is my day job. I tend to work across a range of sectors, and I have a kind of bizarre life where one day I'm in a hospital and the next day I'm in an investment bank. And the difference I sometimes describe as the amount of marble in the lobby. So those of you who know the National Health Service in England, there's not a lot of marble in it. But I've also, over the last 5 years, done a bit of research about, starting from my own experience about being a lesbian in my consulting practice, to interviewing over 140 people about their experiences of being out and the impact of that on productivity, and interviewing a lot of lesbians about what was the impact of coming out at work. So I've also spent a lot of time doing that. I'm also co-chair with Catherine on the Gay Women's Network in London this year, although I'm soon to step down from that role. Today I thought I would draw on my day job really and share some tips about how we as women can help our careers to be successful. And my initial brief said 10 tips, and then I saw what Liz was doing after me and realised that she was going to cover some of my tips, so I'm doing 8. So I've dropped some tips. And they come from various sources. So I've heard a lot of women speak about what makes their careers successful. I coach a lot of senior women. It's something I particularly enjoy doing. And I've read a lot of the research. So I've kind of pulled together some tips about how can we help our careers succeed as a result of that. Great. And so here they are, in no particular order. So the first one is take a stretch assignment. Just over 10 years ago, I was, when I last had a proper job, I was managing an incredibly ambitious woman who decided that her goal was to be the chief exec of a large hospital. That's where she wanted to be. Excuse me. At this stage, she was working for me. She was not in a senior position. And she didn't have the right sort of experience that you would normally see rise through the ranks to being a chief exec. And so we jointly, together, came up with a plan that involved starting with a sideways move out of my team into an operational team. She then very strategically planned 3 more sideways moves. She essentially didn't have a pay rise for about 4 or 5 years, but she systematically got the experience she needed. And then, of course, she was spotted, and within another 4 years was offered a chief executive job of a large NHS hospital. And she did all that by being brave enough to say, I don't have to go up yet. I know I need to gain the experience. I know I need to be credible when I get there, and in order to do that, I need to create my own career path. But the other thing that we've seen is that often women don't get offered stretch assignments in business. So these are assignments that help us to grow, that take us out of our comfort zone. And that is also a really important way of us helping our careers, being prepared to be a bit courageous and do something that is going to be difficult, is going to make it a bit scary, is going to be a bit risky. In London, at the Gay Women's Network, we had a panel with 4 chief executive level lesbians, which we were really proud to host. And all of them said that this was a really key factor in their career. Being prepared to take sideways moves, stretch assignments, work over the odds at different times had an impact on them. We can find sponsors and or advocates. This is something men have been doing for years, and we've called it the old boys network and kind of been a bit disparaging about it. But actually, that was something very powerful and has worked very well. And there's something about how could we tap into that. So by this, we're meaning finding people, usually more senior, who can sponsor or advocate for us. These are people who can help be in the room at the times when people are saying, who should we get for that stretch assignment? And they'll say, look, I know somebody, I'm sponsoring them, I'm trying to help them get on with their career. Why don't we put their name in that slot? And there are 2 firms in the UK who are doing this at the moment. American Express and UBS are doing this very successfully. And Sylvia Ann Hewlett's just done some research for the Harvard Business Review on using sponsorship. And her view is that using sponsors, finding sponsors, is one of the ways of breaking through the glass ceiling. And she thinks it could be a really significant way, finding senior people who will help us who are more junior to get the exposure, to take the risks. They'll help us manage the political environment. They'll just help us move on. And so I would really encourage those of you who are wanting to be ambitious to see if you can be courageous enough to go and find somebody to be your sponsor, be it male or female, but somebody who's going to help you, look out for you. We've heard a lot about this today, so I'm not going to say much more, but dreaming big is really important. There was an article in the Harvard Business Review about 5 years ago that said women lacked ambition. I wasn't really very pleased to read that article because I didn't think it was necessarily true. But I think we lose ambition sometimes in the face of challenge. And I think that it's good for us to dream. It's good for us to really be bold and courageous about the jobs we're going to go for and to kind of imagine big things. And then I'm a believer that with my dreams, I have vision boards. So I put my dreams and my goals up on my study wall, which is also our spare room. So I have to take them down when guests are coming, because otherwise they're going to lie in bed and look at my goals and dreams. But I'm a great believer that if we don't dream, we're not going to move on. That we really have to be courageous and dream big. We need to create a small group of people who love us. We work in really difficult times, and it's really hard to be resilient in those circumstances, I believe. And so I have, for example, two women who I've met with once, we meet regularly, but for 10 years now we've met and really supported each other in our careers. And I can't tell you how proud I was when one of our team went to the Buckingham Palace to receive her OBE recently, because we felt that we had done a little bit of helping her to be resilient in a construction company. And she'd won her award for the work of working as a woman in a construction company. And I really believe that if we really want to survive, we have to have people who are there looking out for us, who are not necessarily even in the company we're working for. People we can ring up and saying, I'm having a terrible day, I just need a shoulder to cry on. Or I need you to help me to get out of this spot. Or I need you perhaps sometimes just to help me find another job, because actually in order for me to reach my goal in my career, I'm going to need to be brave and leave here. So I really think that having a small group of people who love us, who are our career support, is really important. Kind of obvious, but we need to be ourselves. In my research on lesbians in corporate life, I heard the story time and time again that when I wasn't out, it was harder work. When I wasn't being myself at work, I wasn't as productive. And I think that we now have seen this research again in the States. I've certainly done it in the UK, that hiding parts of ourselves actually reduces our productivity. And that by being authentic, we're much more able to be effective in our roles, because all of our energy then is going into the place of our work, is going into that point of our work. And so it's really important that we do that. And a quote that kind of keeps me remembering this is the Oscar Wilde quote, which some of you will know, which says that we need to be ourselves because everyone else is taken. So be yourself, everyone else is taken. We need to build relationships. This has been a bit of a recent learning for me. In her book, Reaching the Top, Wanda Wallace has suggested that women in senior positions don't have as many peer-to-peer relationships as their most successful male counterparts. And she thinks that this means that women are less connected to emerging opportunities, have fewer sources of informal information, and have a harder time getting properly recognised for their contribution. And I think many of the women I coach will say to me, I'm too busy doing the job to be playing golf is the thing that's normally said. I'm too busy at my desk because I've got to prove myself, because I'm a woman, I've got to prove myself harder. And the challenge in Wanda Wallace's book is actually that we're missing a trick if we're doing that. That actually, and we know the figures, that promotion comes out of networking and relationship as much as it comes out of the delivery of the job we do. And that we need to make sure that we're taking time out of our days to have lunch with people, to chat to people over the coffee machine, to chat, just to really build those relationships. And I personally think that that's where networking comes in as well, that we really need to make the time to do that and to build relationships outside of our normal and natural group. Because it's in those relationships that further opportunities and career possibilities will come. We need to manage upwards. I've recently been coaching a woman who came to me because she'd been told by her boss not to apply for the job she was already doing, which was needing to be re-advertised for complicated public sector reasons. And she came to me to say that this was a complete surprise to her because she thought she was doing a really good job. So she decided to ignore her boss. She applied for the job. She got the job. So then she had a difficult conversation with her boss, which was, why did you tell me not to apply for it? And he said, because until you came to interview, I had no idea how good you were. And she said, well, why would that be? He said, because all I ever heard were your problems. I never heard all the good stuff you were doing. You never told me that you'd sorted all this stuff out, delivered that, managed this within budget, and I'm too busy to look. So I didn't notice that you were doing that. So we need to find ways of managing upwards, of shouting, not even shouting, just emailing. By the way, did you see that our team delivered X, brought in this, did that, managed this project to time, on budget, whatever it is, but just pushing the message upwards. And then the last one I want to say is just to be prepared to stand out and be visible. That we need to be seen in order to succeed. And we've heard some lovely messages today about how that when people are different, it's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. So we need to take those risks and be prepared to stand out in the crowd, to say something that might be different to our colleagues around the table. We need to be prepared to disagree and share our own thoughts and ideas, because it's in that space that we will stand out and be a bit different. So these are just a few of my thoughts and tips. In some ways, they kind of come in a package and make it look easy, but let's face it, this is a constant labyrinth that we're negotiating. But if we remember some of these, I think it does help to keep us moving forward. Thank you.